Hi. So until recently, running an AM setup was pretty default. You would need an infrastructure team that would have set up an environment for you or multiple environments. You would need automation. You would need continuous delivery, continuous integration, monitoring, security, and pretty much a complete set of standard practices that allow you as a client to benefit from a service. Until now, that service was offered by third-party vendors like Netcentric, for example. But since AMS appeared on the market, we can actually go directly to Adobe. And today, this presentation is about how companies like Netcentric can still offer added value service over the Adobe Managed Services provided by the vendor. So let's start. So for those of you who don't know what Adobe Managed Services is, well, a while back Adobe introduced a new offering that is called AMS for short. It's basically a cloud managed by Adobe. It's either AWS or Azure, and it's essentially a stack of templates that automate the deployment and preparation and setup of an AM offering directly to the client. Alongside AMS, we also get a customer success engineer, which is a dedicated engineer that Adobe offers the customers in order to take care of that infrastructure, to handle monitoring, to handle custom implementations in the scope of the infrastructure, or support the client in any way possible. The third benefit of AMS is the fact that you get cost reduction. So a customer can save up to 33% in total licensing and operating costs just by moving to AMS. So that was the brief explanation. The reality is that you actually get something similar to what you used to have in the past also. So depending on the size of the customer account, architecture size, and the customer needs, the standard architecture provided by AMS starts with one author, one dispatcher, and one publisher. A recommended setup would be one author because the author can only be scaled vertically, and horizontally is not really a viable option. And afterwards, you have at least two publishers and at least two dispatchers. What I wanted to mention here is that the dispatchers are configured in such a way that they offer a load balancing for the author. So if one dispatcher goes down, the other one will still allow you to access the author. So in terms of code, AMS offers each customer a Git repository that uses Maven to build the code packages and dispatcher configuration all together. So you only have one Git account in which you put everything, and you have an option to sync that Git account with your company Git or another Git repo wherever you post it. So the developers can work on yours and then just sync it to AMS. What's worth mentioning here is that the Git repo only has 3 users, so you're kind of limited in that aspect. That's why the sync part comes in handy. So deployments in AMS are meant to be as simple as possible. So AMS has a tool called Cloud Manager that allows you to trigger deployments. It validates code quality. It shows you the infrastructure setup. It shows you a history of deployments. Um, it shows you some metrics and some reports overall. Basically, what AMS allows you to do in the simplest way possible is take any member of the team. It can be the PM, it can be a support engineer, system engineer, developer, doesn't matter. And then he can just go into the Cloud Manager and trigger a deployment by just clicking a button. So it's super easy and super straightforward. The only difference is that in pro deployments, you also have the assistance of the customer success engineer. When you trigger a production deployment, the request goes to the CSE, the customer success engineer, and then the CSE just approves it and the deployment goes further. So this is basically the normal flow of an AMS deployment cycle. So you put the Git code, the code into the Git from Adobe. You build the code in Cloud Manager, then it's being unit tested inside the Cloud Manager. The code is inspected, it's deployed to stage, then they do a security test, then they do a load test, a performance test, and afterwards it's deployed to prod. So in total, 9 steps that are linked together, and if one fails, your deployment won't reach prod anymore. So it's also taught in the idea that it should respect the most high standards of security and performance. So um, that's a nice presentation for AMS, but the focus of this is actually system engineers. So since we don't have a normal environment anymore where we have control over the infrastructure, since we don't have control of the continuous deployment and continuous integration, and things overall changed in the game. Are system engineers still needed? Do we still have a role in a setup for an AEM hosted environment? Can we do anything to help the developers or the QAs in this sense, or even the customer? So to be honest, right now the idea is that the customer goes to Adobe Managed Services and it launches its platform. Simple as that. The brochure says it should work. Well, the reality is that there are a lot of steps that the customer has to take into account in order to actually reach his end goal of launching the platform. And that's where we came in as Netcentric. Because, first of all, if you don't have any infra, you have a few advantages. First of all, you have trust in the sense that you don't have to worry about the stability and well-being of your infrastructure, just because AMS has dedicated people and dedicated resources assigned to this. So the infrastructure is highly available and highly reliable, and it allows for system engineers to focus on other aspects. Also, you have the dedicated people that help. So the customer success engineers assist the customer and us with custom requests. They help us in incident management. They monitor the platform and solve production requests. And last but not least, because we don't have any infra topics, we can focus on doing what we should do best, and that's it. That is running AM environments from an application point of view. So, first topic that the system engineer should handle in his new tradition. Um, Customers still need to migrate inside the AMS. So although AMS offers you the vessel, you have to bring your own code and content there. So that's easily said. It's not easily done. Um, I've been in a few AMS projects where we had to migrate content from an on-premise or cloud infrastructure into AMS, and I can tell you it's not always that easy. You deal usually with huge content packages, tens of gigabytes, maybe more. You have custom requirements. You sometimes also need to move from 6.3 a.m., for example, to a 6.5 a.m. or even older. So migrating is not always such a simple task, and it usually involves a lot of effort and a lot of a lot of complicated tasks just to make sure that the content is safely moved into AMS. The second part is the dispatcher configuration. So alongside AMS, Adobe launched the Dispatcher 2.0 version, which is a significantly greater improvement from the first version. It comes with a great documentation set. It also comes with a really nice structure, and at least for me, who I've worked with Nginx for the example in the past, it's extremely familiar, and I have to admit, if I were to choose a structure and I had to choose from Apache or Nginx, I would prefer the Nginx one only because it's more straightforward and simpler to use. And apparently somebody at Adobe saw that and they used it, and kudos to you because it's great. But the idea is that when you move to AMS, you have to basically rewrite everything inside your Apache. From vhost, macros, rewrite rules, security filters, cache rules, everything that's inside the dispatcher configuration and everything that's inside the Apache configuration. So not everyone can do this out of the box, and I have to admit it's not easy, and you have to be able to get something that's been there for a long time and it's working and people are afraid to touch it, and break it down completely and rebuild it in the same image as AMS wants you to, because they do have a guide for how to build a proper dispatcher configuration, and you have to follow some standards. And in that area, Netcentric is pretty good at it. We even got feedback from CSCs that our configurations are one of the best they have ever seen. So once you've finished with the dispatcher and the migration, you can also take a deeper dive inside AEM, because every customer setup has a different setup on its own. AEM is so big and so complex that it's rarely the case where you have two customers that have pretty much the similar setup. So if you think you run out of things to do, you will always find you can debug issues and see what's wrong. You can offer technical comprehensive support for the customer and for your own colleagues, because developers also need assistance. You can customize the SSO, for example. You can improve the CDN implementation, because that's always part you can take a look at. Cache is really important, so do your best to improve the CDN as much as possible. And we also can take a dive into my favorite part, which is custom tooling. Although AMS is a structure on its own, and you may feel a little bit boxed in because you don't have the access you used to have, it's actually a breath of fresh air, because you can end up doing a lot of cool stuff that help the customer and make his life a lot easier, and also help your support colleagues and the overall team and implementation. So among a few things we worked on while doing AMS projects, I'm going to mention the few tools we created. So for example, we created a simplified redirect tool that basically allows the customer to just go inside AEM, put in his redirects, so from point A to point B, for example, or 301 or 302. And then we have custom tooling in the background that just takes the data from AEM, parses it, converts it into what it needs, and puts it into the Apache. We also did some custom tooling for redirect rule monitoring. So for example, if you have a huge pile of redirects, we have customers that have hundreds, thousands of redirects, you kind of want to monitor them. You have to know if they're still working, how many redirects in a line does it take to reach the destination, and so on. And based on that, we created some a comprehensive reporting that allows the customer to make SEO decisions in the sense that, okay, this chain is not working anymore, this chain is not efficient for me, maybe these redirects need to be updated and so on. You also have custom reporting from all sorts of things. So lower traffic or higher traffic than usual for every one of your domains, user management, and so on. We even created some tooling for logging and statistics. So basically, we import everything from AEM and the dispatchers, and we parse it and offer custom dashboards to the customers, so they can set their own KPIs and basically monitor everything from a unified dashboard. We also have monitoring created custom for our clients. So the default AMS monitoring setup offers a standard variety of tests, from infrastructure to some basic health checks in the application to monitoring for a few key domains, let's say, for your customer. But we extended that and we now monitor a lot of other significant KPIs for the customer, like, I don't know, concurrent user editing or traffic for a certain page or form access. So depends on the customer needs. So basically everything I just mentioned gets put into a dashboard that helps the client make better decisions and see exactly how uh, his or her websites are performing and how he can take measures to improve different aspects that are not going as he planned. So one of the other subjects I personally like is the cloud API integration, which basically is exactly like it's stated. Uh, Cloud Manager offers an open API, and you can get some information or trigger some things directly from it. So, for example, you can get information on your pipeline. So, let's say you have a pre-production and production pipeline inside AMS. You can trigger an API call and get information about your pipelines and dump them into your custom KPI or dashboard something. Also, you can see the deployment status for your branches. You can take customized actions like trigger a deployment, cancel a deployment, schedule a deployment, and although it's still being enriched with tasks and information, it's a good starting point to allow customers to have their own unified setup instead of using countless different tools. You don't have to have monitoring in one place, Cloud Manager, you have to go to Adobe for it, and so on. You can just put them all together in one single place, and it's a lot easier and more efficient to do. Whether you consider to move to AMS and you have your own team that handles all your AM needs, you can maybe draw some inspiration from my presentation. Or if you figure you need help and would want to improve the way you're doing your AM development and improvements, feel free to reach us out at Netcentric. And also, if you have any questions regarding the presentation or the concepts I presented, feel free to ask. Thank you.